All right. The show I'm gonna ask you questions about today is called My Love from Another Star, and it
Mm-hmm.
is a 2014 Korean drama. This is a very famous drama. Okay. Oh, yeah, and it stars Gianna Jun or Chun Ji Hyun, and she was in the film version of the zombie TV show, like Kingdom. There were two seasons, and then
Mm-hmm.
the third one, instead of doing a season finale, they did a film similar
Mm-hmm.
to Transparent, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
1 hour musical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's in it. She's in it, and
Okay.
she's beloved in all of Asia. So
Okay.
let's say that you're a really famous film star named
Mm-hmm.
Chun Song-yi, and you're super famous. Like everybody loves you, everybody recognizes you. You get on the elevator, and a young man also gets on at the same time, and you assume that he followed you onto the elevator
Mm-hmm.
to get your autograph. So you tell him
Mm-hmm.
to buzz off, and turns out he's just your next door neighbor in the same building as you. And he
Mm-hmm.
says he has no idea who you are. And then, you're like, I mean, don't you recognize me? And he's like, am I supposed to know who you are? What do you do?
Um, well, it's also kind of rude that this person doesn't recognize their neighbors. Like both of them don't recognize their neighbors. What's going on there? But I
Oh,
guess
she
it's
just
like,
moved in. She moved in like that day.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do I
Hmm.
do? I'm the actress. I'm the star.
Yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
Um, what do I do? How hot is my neighbor slash potential stalker?
He's really hot.
Okay.
Very hot.
I don't know. I'll need some butter or salt randomly and be like, "Hey, neighbor, I just moved in. Do you have a
Yeah.
bottle opener?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
drop a titty or something. I don't know. That I assume that's how women flirt.
That's how
Get a
we all
nipple
do it.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how all of us make children. Yeah. Without that move, there would be no human beings on
There's no
Earth.
procreation. Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
None. Gotta go to the neighbor, borrow some sugar, and drop a titty. That's only how it's
Yes.
done.
Maybe
Okay, great.
two if he's really
Maybe
hot.
both. Maybe
Yeah.
both. If you're lucky, you got three. All right. You got a leg up if you have three titties to drop. Okay.
Wow, well, I'll have both legs up if you have three titties. That was dumb.
Okay. 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 All right. Question number two. Let's say you're this man named Do Minjun. Okay. You're that neighbor guy actually.
Mm-hmm.
In reality though, you're not a man at all. You're actually an alien that arrived from a s- uh, uh, those flying saucer things. You arrived in Korea in the year
Mm-hmm.
1601. Okay, you have
Mm-hmm.
very sensitive hearing. Okay, move. Come on, stop. You have very sensitive hearing, and you also have like special powers, like kinetic powers. You could stop time. You can move things around in the air. All right. One evening, you're trying very hard to sleep at night, but you can't because you hear your next door neighbor, movie star lady, singing like
Mm.
crazy, like off the top
Yeah.
of her lungs.
Yeah.
So you go over and you knock on the door and you ask her politely to please keep it down. And she gets so offended that she goes back inside and starts to cry hysterically. Now the sound of her crying is even louder.
Mm.
What do you do?
Is this a drama or it sounds like a screwball comedy?
Yeah, it's
But
more of a yeah.
what do I do? S- first of all, why is no offense to Korea, but why is he in Korea for 400 years if he can do whatever the fuck he wants? Like, go see some other places. Um, but he can. What's his powers? Kinetic powers,
Yeah, you
hearing.
can
Can he
move
move
stuff.
things with his mind? Yeah,
He could
I don't
stop
know.
time.
Yeah. Um. Well, stop time. Take a nap.
Mm,
Wait. Sleep it out. Sleep it off. Wake up.
mhm.
Unstop time. She can keep crying while you go to work or whatever it is
Oh
you do.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
smart. That's super smart. Yeah, why didn't they think of this
Use
solution?
your powers. Yeah.
Exactly. He's sitting around with his powers not being put to
Not
use.
using them. Just yeah. Or I don't know, you if you can move things with your mind, move some egg cartons onto the wall to soundproof her apartment or your apartment. You could
Does
do
that
so
work?
much things.
Wow.
I don't know. I've seen a music studio once that had those.
I've seen it, but I don't think I don't think it soundproofs. I think it just
It's like a echo thing.
echo thing. It's an acoustics thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Also, you need a lot of
Doesn't do
egg
jack shit,
cartons.
turns out. Okay. But no, I agree with you. He should have used his powers in this instance. Yeah. Super
Yeah,
easy. Okay, very good.
yeah.
Let's say now you're an actress named Himi. All right. You're a different actress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're also a star, but you're not at the level of
Mm.
your friend Songi. And she's your
Yeah.
childhood friend. She's way more famous than you are, okay? She gets all the lead roles and you're always supporting cast, okay? You're
Mm-hmm.
really living under her shadow, all right?
Mm-hmm.
One day, you, your friend Songi, and another guy friend from also your childhood, his name is Hee-kyung. You used to have you have a huge crush on this guy, okay? But at the
Mm-hmm.
dinner table in front of you, he proposes to Songi.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then,
D- d-
and then Songi
yeah.
rejects him.
Okay.
What do you do?
And these are my friends, but I have no idea that they were like about that one of them was about to propose to the other one. It
Yeah,
just
no,
out of the
because
blue.
they were
Hmm.
not dating. Yeah, they were never dating. He's just like literally just proposing.
Okay. Well, that's ballsy. But yeah,
Yeah.
now I can be the rebound. You know, he just got
Oh,
rejected. That's
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Now he's gonna wanna, he's gonna want a little love and affection from
Yeah.
me to get over
Mm.
his rejection. It's perfect,
Mm.
actually. Yeah, it's like I set it up myself. That's
Oh, wow.
how
Yeah.
good it is for me. Actually, I'm totally
Oh, okay.
profiting of that.
So
Yeah.
you don't mind be like taking the leftovers.
I mean, is she like hot for him or is she in love with him?
She's like in love with him.
Hmm. Well,
He
still,
hasn't doesn't look
yeah,
at her in that way at all.
but still, you get a nice shag out of it, maybe. Um, and it's better than nothing.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Yeah,
true.
and then you think about it every time you masturbate for the
Oh my
rest of your life.
Okay, just bone him once, and then from that, you just record it in your memory, and from that point
Yeah,
on, you just use it as a
yeah.
mental stimulation too.
If
Okay,
he falls in
got
love
you.
with me, good. If he doesn't, I'll always have that one night.
Do you think that's how it works, though? You have sex with a guy who's not interested in you, and he ends up falling in love with you?
I mean, me specifically, no. I'm not good enough at sex for that to happen. But who knows? It could happen to other people. Yeah, I have fallen in love with someone after the first sex, but actually had
Post
nothing to do
coitus,
with the sex. It had nothing to do with the sex. It just happened. There just happened to be sex involved. So yeah,
you just became more physically connected, and it became this deeper thing for you, more meaningful.
I guess yeah.
Let's say you're Songi, the actress lady, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the stuck up diva one, okay.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you and your neighbor, alien person, Minjun, you guys like each other. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there's a rival actress, different chick, not Simi, the
Mm-hmm.
childhood friend, different lady. Her name's
Mm-hmm.
Yura. She used to pick on you all the time. You guys used to get into huge fights, okay? Like she was also a diva, but she just didn't have the chops, like super envious, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible relationship. She was recently found dead. And people are unfairly accusing Minjun as the killer. What do
Mm-hmm.
you do?
Mm. First of all, is everybody in Korea an actress? There's a lot of actresses in this plot. It's like the one profession in all of Korea. It sounds like
It's either
that
you're
are
an alien
aliens.
or you're an actress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so I'm being accused of murder.
No, your
the
boyfriend, your
Oh,
alien
my boyfriend is
boyfriend is
the
being
alien boyfriend is
accused
being
of
accused of
murder.
murder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he probably did it. He's an alien. He has special powers. He can't die, apparently. If I if I were that, I would first of all travel, as we've established, and also kill
Yeah.
people because I can get away with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I mean, what I would do is just not get on his bad side because it's clear,
Oh,
he
yeah.
might fuck some shit up.
He might
Yeah,
off you,
and
yeah.
then I guess I'd help him cover it up. I'm a,
Wow, very loyal.
I'm a,
Uh-huh.
I'm a diva movie star actress. I can't like risk my career.
It's more about your reputation rather than
Yeah,
his safety. Got it. Very
yeah, it also,
diva-esque.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can become a crime couple,
Yeah.
Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah,
Exact. A
alien and
Korean Bonnie and
actress.
Clyde slash
Yes,
aliens. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
fun,
Okay.
fun times ahead.
Very good. Huh. Okay. Last question. Let's say you're the diva actress Songi again. Okay. Your alien boyfriend Minjun says he's being called back to his planet. All right.
Hmm.
Like you guys have been
Hmm.
dating, and now he's like, "Oh,
Hmm.
my planet is calling me." So I'm gonna just disappear like that. When they call me, I vanish and I'm there.
Okay.
It's like teleports
Okay.
over there. Okay. He doesn't know when he will be returning to Earth to see her
Mm-hmm.
again, but he promises that he will, right? He says that
Mm-hmm.
that's how it's gonna always be throughout the rest of your relationship. While you guys are just hanging out together, just like watching TV or like getting chicken, whatever, he'll just suddenly like vanish because he gets called back to his planet and he'll just vanish and there's no telling when he's going to be back. That's going to be a relationship.
Hmm.
What do you do?
Perfect. I love it. This is the best
Really?
relationship I've ever had was with a guy who was only in town like every 2 weekends.
Wow.
And it was perfect. It was ideal. I love it. Yeah, I get to like sleep alone in my bed without somebody who's hot and snoring next to me. And then,
Mm,
once every blue moon,
yeah.
they show up and we have a good time and then they fuck off again. I love it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Wow.
Why are they calling him back on his planet?
The reason why I don't know is it's an arbitrary reason, I'm sure, but like he
Hmm.
was in Korea for like 400 years because like there was a mission there, and I
Mm-hmm.
guess his mission was achieved. I have no idea what the fuck his mission was. I don't think it's
Yeah,
ever
because
explained.
it's
Um,
not like it's not like Korea is like suddenly, without problems. He didn't seem to do anything
didn't
that important.
didn't solve anything. All the wars and occupations, they all
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, it's none of it was stopped. I have no idea why, and
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, it's a bonkers. It's funny though. I think it's a genuinely hilarious show. It's very camp. It's fucking
Hmm.
ridiculous. And the actress,
Hmm.
like Chun Ji, she's so funny. Like
Yeah.
she's so like as an actress, she's so gorgeous. She looks so elegant and like she's to model. She's like considered one of the hottest,
Hmm.
actors in Korea. But she's so comically like bizarre in this show, and it's fucking entertaining. And yeah, I
That
got a
sounds
kick out of it.
fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of an
Is
old
it
show. It's like 8 years old now.
okay? How many seasons are there?
There's just one. Most
Okay.
Korean shows, there's just one
Okay.
season. I think like
Uh,
16 episodes or 20. I don't know, but
that sounds
it's
achievable. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you ever want to watch something fucking camp, this is a good one. Okay,
Hmm. Yeah.
that does it for the flashcard
Cool.
questions. Thank you, Tobias.
Thank you.
Welcome to K Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. at the Elysian Theater for the Tomorrow Show with Ron Lynch on August 5th. That's a Friday. The show starts at midnight, so it's technically Saturday, but it is Friday night. So, yeah, please find me there for the Tomorrow Show, which is one of the longest running comedy variety shows in LA. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun time. So please stop by. It should be great. Today, I'm going to be talking about the show My Love from the Star, which stars some huge actors. Chun Ji-hyun, okay, mega Hallyu actress. Also, Kim Soo-hyun, right? This is a fantasy rom-com K-drama. It is written by writer Park Ji-eun. And Park Ji-eun is well known for several very big hits. She is perhaps most well known for her most recent show Crash Landing on You, starring Hyun Bin and Son Ye-jin, right? She also wrote The Legend of the Blue Sea, which sort of came after My Love from the Star, also starring Chun Ji-hyun. She also wrote The Producers, which stars Kim Soo-hyun, Cha Tae-yeon, and IU. I really love My Love from the Star because not only is it camp and humor driven, but Chun Ji-hyun's performance as a comedic actress is really remarkable. But she's also very grounded, like emotionally, I could tell, right? So Chun Ji-hyun is a really great performer. Right after My Love from the Star was a big hit, like a year later, Goblin became a huge hit. So yeah, Korean drama is sort of melding like the historical drama, time travel element, or reincarnation element, sort of fusing these worlds with the fantasy thing. It's definitely been a trend, and I think they're still trying to do it, but to less of a success, I feel like, because they definitely tried it with The King, Eternal Monarch, and it just failed miserably. Today, I'll be talking to actor Steve Park. He is a Korean American actor. He is kind of a veteran Korean American actor, I would say. He's a big figure in the Asian American community for sure. He was in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing in 1989. He was also in A Serious Man, directed by the Coen brothers. He was also in Fargo, directed by the Coen brothers. When I was watching The French Dispatch in theaters, the latest Wes Anderson movie, I was pleasantly surprised to find Steve Park in that film because his role isn't uh, comedic per se, even though I would say Steve Park always brings some comedic commitment to all of his performances. But yeah, he plays a very different kind of character in that film. And he is collaborating with Wes Anderson again in Asteroid City, which is currently in post production. It should be out either, I believe, next year or the year after. In any case, he and Wes Anderson have been collaborating increasingly. So, yeah, I really admire Steve Park's work as an actor. He was also in Living Color, and he has this whole like history working in stand-up comedy, but also sketch comedy. He is a remarkable performer. This was such a pleasure, and it was such an honor. What a treat. Let's talk to Steve Park. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, we're going to record right away. All right.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Great. Thanks for doing this.
sure.
Appreciate
How are
it.
you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Doing very good.
Okay.
I was like, I mean, I've always been a fan of your work. I mean, you're kind of a hero figure to a lot of Korean Americans. I'm sure
Oh,
you're
wow. Thank
aware
you.
of this. But yeah, I was like, wait, he lived in upstate New York, which is so funny
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I lived in Rockland County, New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my parents have a place in Airmont. Do you know Airmont?
Oh
Suffern?
no. Oh,
Suffern?
Suffern. Yeah, Suffern. I know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think Suffern
Wow.
and Airmont are interchangeable. I don't know.
Oh,
But they're in the
interesting.
same, yeah, they're the same place.
How did your parents end up there?
Well, they actually are moving there. They have a separate place there.
Uh huh.
Um, and we're in the process, my sister and I are in the process of moving them from their home,
Uh huh.
which I grew up in, up
Uh
in
huh.
Vestal, New York by Binghamton.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's time to, that we're doing the big transition, the big parental trying to get them closer to where we are. I'm up in the
Mm,
Hudson Valley. My sister
yeah.
is in Westchester,
Nice.
and yeah, so we're in that process now.
How did your parents end up in upstate New York though?
Well, my dad was a doctor. He first landed in Brooklyn, and
Oh.
I that's where I was born in Clinton Hill.
Mm,
And then when I was about 8, we moved to Manhattan and lived across from the Sloan Kettering, where my father
mm,
was doing cancer surgery, and he was doing a residency there.
right.
But the city was not. He was never a city person, so he wanted to
Mm,
go up, more into the country. So the first place we landed was called Waverly, New York, which is
mm-hmm,
right next to Sarah, Pennsylvania. And
mm-hmm.
then we lived there for a couple of years, and then landed in Vestal, which is
Wow.
Binghamton, and then yeah, and then that's where they've been. And it's
Wow.
just small. He had his own practice. He became was a general surgeon, and that was more his. He's a fly fisherman. He's likes to
Got it.
do quiet things.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I think like Koreans have this like agrarian, like nostalgic sort of heart. Like my parents
Mm,
also like garden a lot because both of them come
mm,
from like farmer backgrounds. So
yeah,
gardening, all of
right.
that.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
my mother loves to garden
Yeah. Yeah.
very much
It's like
so.
it's just like it's in their hands, in their bones. Like they
Yeah,
can't not do it, you know?
right,
They
right.
sort of have it all the time. Interesting. So your father was a doctor.
Yeah,
Fascinating. Is your
yeah.
sister also in entertainment or is she like just
No, she's a
working something?
business. She's in business, a business
Right on.
person. Yeah.
Right on. Fascinating.
At one point, she was president of Levi's in Korea.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so at the time, that was kind of a big deal. She was
Yeah.
like a minor celebrity there.
That's cool. Did you ever work in Korea?
No, I've been to Korea a couple of times. Last time was in the 90s before cell
Oh,
phone. And then
wow.
before that was in the 70s when I was a teenager.
Oh my
So
gosh.
my experience with Korea is so limited.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you have any desire to
Oh,
work in
yeah. I
Korea?
was actually possibly going to work on a Korean movie, my first Korean movie in Korea. And then that fell apart because
Uh-huh.
one of the actors got cancer.
Oh my
And so they
gosh.
had to, so anyway, everything kind of fell apart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the intention is there, I'm sure another opportunity like that will come to you. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I just want to say, by the way, that you're Dr. Grace Jung. Like you're like this kind of Korean, like the ideal daughter in terms of like you're pursuing. Like
mm,
I admire that your pursuit of your dream, what you want to do, but
yeah.
also you know you are educated up the wazoo. So that's all good.
Thanks. I mean, you would think, right? But like Korean parents are this they're an infinite abyss of dissatisfaction, I feel
Oh
like,
yeah,
like I never
yeah.
like I'm working on a book right now based on my podcast called K-Drama School, and I found myself writing about the time when I told them, like, I was going to college. I was at Hunter College at the time, and then I was going to transfer to Pace, and going from public school to a private school, like the tuition difference is like drastic. And
Mm,
they were like, you need to justify why you need to transfer. And I was like, well, public school just doesn't give you the proper attention. This private institution does. And they're like, what do you want to study? And I was like, I want to study philosophy. And they found it to be hilarious. Like they
yeah,
were laughing hysterically. And they're like,
right.
what are you gonna do with a
Of
philosophy
course.
degree? What you're gonna be a philosopher? And I was like, I mean, why not, and also maybe law, like a lot of people go to law school, and they were hysterically laughing again. Like my
Hmm.
parents seem to know me in a way, like not know me but know me very well,
Hmm.
because I tried to study for the LSAT, and the LSAT just kind of changes your way of thinking. Like it has its
Hmm.
own logic, and I
Oh,
was like,
really?
I can't do this. Yeah, yeah. It
Hmm.
changed, like, because LSAT is known for having multiple choices, but all of these answers could potentially be an answer, but
Hmm.
there can only be one answer that's
Yeah.
what law does, right?
Right.
Changes your way of thinking. And I was like, I can't do this, you know? So
Mm.
in a way they knew me, but they didn't have high expectations of me as you would think. Like, I think Korean parents are known for having extremely high expectations of their children, no matter what, you know, no matter what the
Yeah.
child is willing to do. Um, and with them, it just that that pressure wasn't there really, honestly,
Yeah.
if I'm honest. Yeah.
Well, you must have been pressuring yourself because you obviously are very high achieving, go
Yeah,
getting. Yeah.
that's what it was. It was self pressure. It was
Yeah.
self-induced pressure.
Yeah. Your
And
own internal parent.
my own internal parent,
Yeah.
exactly. And you know, in like, I don't know, after I finished my degree, I was like, I don't think this had served me at all. Right
Mm.
now, I don't really apply my degree at all. Like,
You
it's
don't
like
think
a
this is applying your degree? What
not
we're doing right now?
really. I mean,
Really?
yes and no. Like, I think people pay attention to somebody who has a degree, you know? They're like, "Oh, she has a degree. She must know what she's talking about." You know, I think it's like that. You know, a university that is like prestigious, right? It's like, "Oh, they're from Yale. They're from MIT." It's like
What was
this
your
this
reason for
thing.
getting a PhD in um,
I
media?
was um I was working at Kino Lorber, that film distribution company in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I was working there for a few years, but it was a really soul crushing job, and I didn't want to work in an office anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent like a year just applying to schools, and you know, I wanted to get a break, like just not work. That's why I went to school. For
Mm-hmm.
me, studying and writing a paper, publishing a paper, going to conferences, all of that came super easy to me,
Yeah.
because work was like a nightmare. I was like, as long as I'm not doing that,
Mm-hmm.
this is no problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's studying, being an academic is not difficult at all. In fact, it's very similar in a lot of ways to like Hollywood, you know, like um, you have to please an institution, you have to
Yeah.
please an organization and those
Yeah.
authorities.
Yeah.
And the people who are controlling academic institutions and the people who are controlling major Hollywood corporations are identical. They're all the same, you know. And I don't know how I came across your articles published in the 90s. I have no idea how I found myself there, but there's
Yeah.
like a web archive with publications based on certain themes, and I just found them very randomly.
Wow.
And yeah, but they're there, they're
Yeah.
archived, and they're there.
Under
And
what's the umbrella? What's the
uh
website?
it's like, I'll send it to you. It's like web dot archive. It's some broad archival database of,
Not part of a university or
no,
anything.
it's a
Hmm.
public archive.
Oh wow.
And I was like, this is a really, I don't know who did it, but it's a great archive. And I was just reading two of your articles published in it. One was published in 94, the other was published in 97. And the one that was published in 97, where you talk about struggling for dignity and your mission statement for Hollywood, right? And some of the things that you say in there, like how there's a rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans in America, and it's a racially divided nation. I mean, you wrote this in 1997,
I know.
and
Yeah.
it resonated so hardcore with present day now, you
Yeah.
know, like
Sure.
especially last year. Like last year, when all these hate crimes, especially against Asian American elderly, were happening, like what
Yeah.
was going through your mind?
Oh yeah. I still have a hard time fathoming the desire to attack the most vulnerable, the oldest people. Like that is so disturbing to me. That whatever that human impulse is, like the most shocking video was the one in Midtown of the old woman and the two doormen just closing the door. That blew my mind. That human beings that were big, these were big guys who
Yeah.
just like stepped away.
Mm.
Uh, couldn't understand that
Mm.
behavior.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I don't know
Yeah.
if did that answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that was
Because
really shocking. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, the mission statement was really, it's like the eternal call of wake up,
Mm-hmm.
wake. It's just a wake up call, like wake up to uh, all of the delusions. You know, it's like, I don't know if you know anything Buddhism like terminology, but
Mm-hmm.
samsara. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
all samsara. It's all delusion. People are just operating under so many delusions and
Yes.
identification with the separate self,
Uh-huh.
and it's now like gotten to such a degree where it's like our culture is having a nervous breakdown. Like that's what it feels
Were
like.
you raised Buddhist?
No, I was, we went to a Presbyterian church when I was young, Korean Presbyterian.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we moved, my best friend, when we moved to Waverly, actually, his dad was a Presbyterian minister. So we went there
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit. But then, my parents were not very religious. My father was not keen on a lot of like um, Christian proselytizing. He had
Yeah.
a strong aversion to that, actually. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So it was more for like
but
a community thing for your parents and
yeah,
you?
pretty much. And then it wasn't, and my interest, my own spiritual journey started pretty, when I was started karate. I started learning karate from a Japanese master
Mm.
who had a dojo in Vestal,
Mm.
and he introduced me to Zen Buddhism, and that was
Mm.
the beginning of my whole search. And then around college, I had this breakdown. My body, like I was under so much, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and
Oh,
it all
okay.
manifested in my body. And I had this arthritic condition that pretty much paralyzed me.
Oh my
And I was in the
gosh.
hospital for a little while, but that kind of deepened my whole um, like spiritual search. And
Yeah.
so I've done a lot of exploration, a lot of, I studied with Don Miguel Ruiz for a little bit, who wrote the
Mm.
Four Agreements,
Yeah, it's a
and
great
traveled to
book.
Machu Picchu with him. And,
Oh
I've
wow.
done meditation retreats, did the 10-day Vipassana retreat. So that's when my meditation really got much deeper. And,
Wow.
yeah, and I've just been very much, like fascinated by, um, any kind of spiritual teaching or spiritual teachers. Like I'm always like, oh, what's this person saying, and if it
Mhm.
resonates with me or not. So
Yeah.
things around non-duality and uh, yeah. I mean, I could go on forever about this, but
When you were in the hospital and you were in this pain and this sort of like immobile state, like what was sort of like the cracking open period for you, like realization wise or enlightenment wise, that was starting to help you regain control of your body?
um, well,
Or was
like
it slower?
it was much more of it wasn't like a one kind of instant. But I'll tell you that school was a huge going to college. Like I had a kind of an opposite journey than you. Like I didn't like gravitate to school, or I
Mhm.
wasn't like a a really brilliant student or anything. But I went to college, to Boston University, my first 2 years, kind of unofficially pre med, because I didn't know what to do
Mm,
with my life. So I
right.
was,
Hmm.
biology, chemistry. I was
Yeah.
failing everything.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I was living with uh, in this dorm with the football team, dealing with racism,
Oh yeah.
and being in Boston, and
Sure. Yeah.
and that's when the arthritis started happening. And then I was on
Wow.
academic probation, transferred to SUNY Binghamton, which was right next to where I live.
Uh-huh.
Somehow got into that school,
Yeah, it's a great
and
school.
it is a great school. But I was like starting with a full load of classes, and then I end up
Right.
with one. So I would be like full time, and then by mid September, I would have to drop classes because I was failing them. And
So it was a demand. It was this high demand, this
well, it
tall
was like
order
I
on
didn't know
you.
what I was doing. Like it was the idea that I was supposed to go to college. I was always supposed to go to college, even though
Yes.
I had no idea
Yes.
what I was doing.
Yes.
And my
Yes.
girlfriend at the time, because I was going to drop out, and she said, before you drop out, just take one semester of classes, and the only criteria is just that they're fun, which was
Yeah.
such an alien concept to me.
Yeah.
So I signed up for an acting class. I signed up for a
Yeah.
mime class, a body movement, and a voice class.
Amazing. Amazing.
and that was all like it didn't feel like I was in school,
Yeah.
and then I ended up getting my degree in theater, and then
Yeah.
right after I graduated, it took me 2 extra years to get a degree, and then the first thing I did after I graduated was I went to New York City, and then I started doing stand up. That's
Yeah.
kind of
Wait.
where I started.
That is wild to me that you went from like theater to stand up. What was
Yeah.
that? Why stand up? What was that choice?
Well, because I had this identity as a class clown. I was a class
Got it.
clown.
Got it.
I was making like Super 8 movies as a kid, and I was a very kind of performative, and I liked things that were funny. I like
Got it.
comedians.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I was very much identified with that, and I thought that to me at the time made the most sense to begin my career.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about all the kind of performers that I admired. A lot of them were doing stand up, and so
Yeah.
I just felt like I could do it.
Mm.
And I did
Yeah.
have this act that I was, doing open mic nights, and
Mhm.
it was all kind of like playing off of Asian stereotypes. And
Sure.
I did this whole bit on Bruce Lee. I had a boombox, and I was doing. I don't remember it like specifically my act, but it
Yeah.
was enough that it got me on like that. Got me on a Living Color.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, in addition to like because the first callback for In Living Color was at the Laugh Factory,
Oh
which
wow.
kind of like took me by surprise.
Yeah.
And there was about 20 of us, including Margaret Cho and
Oh wow.
a bunch of other people. And then then the second callback was again at the Laugh Factory, and I just remember it's like I need more material. And I was just writing like just
Mm.
everything that came to me. And anyway, that's kind
Yeah.
of what led me to In Living Color. And I could have had, being on A Living Color, I could have had this amazing stand-up
Yeah.
thing happening,
I
but
read
I
about
couldn't
it.
do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I just didn't. It wasn't because ultimately I realized like this is not my. It's not my genre. It's not my. It's not.
Mm.
I can't get on stage and go, hey, like I've seen your stuff and you're fantastic and you're very ballsy and you're really very powerful on stage. And not that I
Yeah.
can't do that, but it's not. I feel like stand-up comedians have a particular kind of personality.
Yeah.
Like Bobby Lee is a good example. Like
Oh
Bobby
yeah.
Lee to me is hilarious,
Oh yeah.
and he's too twisted to do anything else.
Oh yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
can't imagine him or his brother Steve like doing anything other
No.
than what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
So and also the lifestyle, like
Uh-huh.
just going to clubs every night and
Yeah. Yeah.
um
I remember reading about that, like after In Living Color, like all these clubs were calling your agent, like asking to book you, and I was like, that is the dream. That is the dream. And
yeah,
you're like, can't do it, you know?
yeah. It's not me. It's not me.
But I think that's how you sort of navigate. It's like you find what's you as they come to
Hmm.
you. And
Yeah.
I look at your filmography, and you've worked with like, I mean, you're kind of highbrow. Even like
Yeah.
even miming, miming is like, I mean, that's clowning. It's a
Mm.
genre of clowning. Clowning is highbrow to
Oh
me.
yeah. No,
It's
I
like
love clowning. Yeah,
it
clowning
is
is
so
amazing.
highbrow. I took a clown class very recently at LA School of Comedy with David Bridle. It was
Oh,
just
David
one
Bridell.
class.
Uh huh.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Cool.
yeah. The
Yeah,
British
yeah.
guy. So it
Oh,
was
British
just a
guy.
yeah,
No, I'm
he's
thinking of a
British.
different David. I'm thinking of a different
Oh,
David.
okay. He's trained with like Gaulier and like he's got pedigree, European
Mm.
pedigree, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a course called the Tragic Clown. At the time I was
Mm.
just dealing with like wall against wall against wall with like everything I've achieved, nothing was landing. So I just took this workshop. Is like when you're stuck in absolute tragedy, rigidity, what are you going to do? Figure out a game, figure out
Mm.
fun. And it was just like a
Mm.
perfect workshop for me. After I took that workshop, I saw my stand up act actually evolving. It
Mm.
develops a lot of trust, like self trust in you. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like your soul sort of knows like what's for
Yeah.
you. And
Sure.
it strives for highbrow, like highbrow
Mm.
shit, like,
Mm.
like Spike Lee,
Mm.
like you even worked with Miranda July. I love Miranda July,
It's so
like,
funny because I ended up getting cut out of that movie.
really? That's too
Yeah.
bad.
Well, it was like you could see my back in one scene, but yeah,
Ugh,
that. But I
I
ended
s-
up the guy who played my son,
yeah,
Ethan
yeah.
Lee, in that. I ended up working with him again with Wes Anderson
Yes,
last fall. So I got to,
yes. That's another thing. You're working with
yeah,
Wes Anderson. Like this is your second role with like second time
yeah,
working with Wes Anderson, right? Like another
yeah,
highbrow dude,
yeah,
like pedigree awards, like can flavor, like that's sort of your
yeah,
thing. But you come from this like background of comedy and television, which is so even the Cohen brothers, but yeah, it seems like your soul knows like where you belong,
mm,
and yeah, I was just like, yeah, your career to me is so unique and
mm,
interesting. It has
mm.
this pattern that I don't see elsewhere.
Also, I think I came up at a time when it's such a different time now than when I started,
Yeah,
in just terms of what the business was like.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's true.
yeah, I mean, I didn't know if I was going to have a career. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Sure.
Um, and I knew every Asian American actor in the country, really. I mean, because
Yeah,
I lived, so I knew everybody. We all knew
right,
each other. It was a
right.
very small community of people,
For
and it
sure.
was more competitive in this weird way, because there
Mm-hmm.
was always like, if you're going to be the Asian on the show, there can only, it was like that mentality. So
Yeah.
that was the culture at the time among Asian American
Yeah.
actors.
How do you navigate something like that though? This mentality of lack. Like, okay, for instance, Um, in the 1994 article that you published, you talk about how um, you were not brought back for the next season of In Living Color. Basically, you were fired, and then the press said, "Oh, that Steve Park is going to go on to do movies now. That's going to be his focus." But really, it was because of Sundaju's probation sentence, and that offended the showrunner, and you were the only Korean
Is that
American.
what this article says?
Yeah, you were kind of saying
Did I write
like
this?
I think
Because I
so.
don't think I came to that conclusion. It's not like I'm coming to any conclusion.
Oh,
I'm
no, no,
not.
no. It was more like how you were feeling. It was projections
Mm,
of how you were feeling. Like,
yeah.
this soon that your probation was announced, and then the showrunner was like really disturbed by it, but you felt like everybody was looking at you in that room.
Well, let me just
Yeah,
kind of my memory of it
yeah, yeah,
was we were in rehearsal and Keenan
yeah.
came in, and I think that was when uh, Sun Jadu shot Latasha Harlins. I think that was the news at the time. It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember it being about her. What was it? What was the verdict? You
The
said it was.
She got a
It was
probation
a
sentence rather
probation,
than
right?
going to prison
Probationary.
or
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, yeah,
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, maybe my memory is off, but yeah,
yeah,
it was this kind of feeling like David put his hand on my
yeah,
back or whatever. So it was like
yeah.
this weird, uncomfortable feeling.
Right,
And
right.
when I wasn't asked back, it was after the LA uprising.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
at that time, my thinking is like, if I was Keenan, I would want me to be on the show at this time because
Yes.
that's how my mind thinks.
Right.
But I found that, and I found this with Spike, like among black celebrities who are in positions of power, they weren't feeling solidarity with the Asian American community at that point. There was no feeling of
Yeah.
like we're going to lift them up, even though
Yeah.
I got cast on the show, which was wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but I'm grateful to all of them. But I just feel like their consciousness was not aligned with where I felt like was kind of the
Yeah.
you're talking about highbrow. It's like,
Yeah.
what is um,
The higher
the
vibration.
highest? Yeah, the highest vibration. What is the high road here, and who's going to
Exactly.
walk it?
But I think, there is this sort of reaction to like what white media does. Oftentimes it pits races against one another through the white narrative. That was
Mm-hmm.
going on a lot during the racial uprisings during the early 90s and after the Sundaju probation. After I read this article, I was just thinking like, wait, how come he gets like Steve Park, like a Korean American gets fired because of some other Korean American woman and they don't know each other. They're not related. They just so happen to be Korean American. That happens, but think of all the white officers who got off, from sentences or prison sentences, whatever, for murder of black and brown bodies. But no white person ever gets fired from a TV show or a movie set. Like nobody bats an eye about that. And this is sort of like in
continuation or tied to this notion of the lack, like the lack of, there's only one role for this Asian character. There's only one role for this Asian person, right? That lack mentality. Like, how do you navigate having this sort of lack, sort of this one space that's created by white Hollywood,
Hmm.
and there are multiple Asian Americans competing for that role, right? Like, how do you navigate that or compromise that with this wanting or this desire of solidarity or alliance with your fellow Asian Americans? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Well, I mean, I was part of Pan Asian. That was kind of where I started in terms of my acting career,
yeah.
and that was my first experience having Asian American friends. So
Hmm.
that was a big awakening for me, just being around them. But
Yeah.
among especially the Asian American men, most
Right.
of them that I knew had a big chip on their shoulder. Of course, most of them had something to
Yeah.
prove, and so
Yeah.
there was a lot of that going on. I think that was. Uh, just trying to prove yourself as this Asian actor, trying to, fight against this emasculating dialogue of the
Yeah.
culture, that's
Yeah.
constantly being put out there. So there
Yeah.
was a lot of that kind of reactionary kind of feeling among, especially Asian American men
Sure. Sure.
um, or actors at the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was,
Mm.
it's and there wasn't Asian black solidarity in that regard either, So,
Yeah.
um, but I don't want to say that that was the reason. It's always been a big question because actually, when I met my wife Kelly, who was
Hmm.
on the
Hmm.
show,
Yeah.
I met her again, like doing a play together, and then soon after that, we got married. And but when I saw her again, that was my first interaction after in Living Color that I
Hmm.
had with anybody associated with that show. So there was this
Mm.
kind of big downloading that we did. And she
Mm.
told me that when they came back the next season, everybody was like,
Yeah.
"Where's Steve?" And
Yeah.
Keenan said that my manager at the time was playing hardball. And because he was really fighting a lot with the Fox network at the time,
Uh-huh.
and it was kind of the beginning of the end of the show, that he
Uh,
was kind of his attitude is like, fuck it, like it didn't matter. So
avoid
that was
trouble. I
that was
see.
what Kelly told me, and she was like,
Right.
well, why would Keenan lie about that?
Yeah.
And also, all the things that the press put out is just publicity. That's what he's gone off to pursue an acting career. All
Yeah.
of that is nothing I said. It's just stuff that they put out there.
Sure.
It's not based on anything
Yeah.
except
Yeah.
protecting whatever they're trying to protect.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
like they put out there that I was pursuing other things.
Uh-huh.
What the producer told me when she called me
Yeah.
was that they were looking for a performer who had more of a stable of characters. Somebody who like could do a bunch of
Interesting.
like that's what they told me. So all of it was just like, nobody's going to go because you're Korean. That we're not, not that. And I'm not saying that that's the truth.
Right.
I'm just saying,
Right.
that was I was left with this unresolved feeling for all of these years until I met Kelly again. And
Right.
then we got to talk all of that out. And now I was able to let it go because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter at that point what happened.
Exactly.
I just
Yeah.
let it go. But I
Right.
was able to put that experience behind me. But it took me, that really screwed me up for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure, because I mean, like, actors already have such a tough job, It's like they got to please
Mm.
somebody so they could get the job,
Yeah, and
and
you're also like in my position. I was always feeling like I was carrying the weight of the race. Like everything I
yes,
did was being like hyper, and so I was criticized quite often.
I'm
So
sure. I'm sure. You can't satisfy, everybody, right? But it's like, that was one of the lofty, ambitious goals you had at the time, right?
mm,
Because, your heart was in the right place. You wanted to do right by everybody,
mhm.
yourself, your people, the industry, right? But oftentimes, like, what they want contradicts or conflicts with these other parties, and you're stuck in the middle of it. And
Yeah,
I sensed a lot of anguish and pain in that article. Genuinely, it was
yeah,
coming through. And um yeah, also, like, being Asian American, being a Korean American man in Hollywood, like, my whole entire master's and doctoral degree was dedicated to Asian masculinity. That's what I was writing about.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's like it's incessant. It's incessant. The one big change that's happening though, and it's happening through K dramas and K-pop to some extent, is Korean masculinity is highly fetishized today.
Hmm.
Extremely fetishized, like off the wall. Um there's another scholar who wrote like about hostels in Seoul where like white Americans or Canadian girls, like young women in their
Hmm.
20s,
Hmm.
will go to Korea to like as sex tourists
Hmm.
basically to because they watch so many K-dramas
Yeah.
and watch so many K-pop videos. They're like in love with these Korean men. Fantasies, really, projected
Yeah.
fantasies, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, they're not like that. They go
Yeah.
to Korea and think that they're going to find this Korean man who is just like K-dramas, and of course they're nothing like that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the industry is creating constructing another masculinity, Asian masculinity through Korean
Right.
entertainment that's happening. That's really fascinating. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's really it's an endless cycle of pain. I feel like, you know, when you were talking about in the 97 article about veteran actor James Hong on the set of Friends, and how a first AD like was like, oh, where's that guy, like the Oriental guy, you know, and how you felt like you were the only person who heard this and noted this, and everybody else was sort of like going about their work, their job, business as usual. But you know, this was like this painful note that you made in your memory. Like, I'm sure you've encountered numerous instances like this throughout your career. Um, and I have as well. Like, I mean, I had a, you know, a film career in New York, but when I moved to LA and I was going back to school, I decided to intern for Comedy Bang Bang,
Hmm.
this TV show. And the first AD, no, the second AD had us on the walkie-talkie channel, and he was saying like anti-Asian racial like sounds, like ching chong, this and that. He was like saying
Hmm.
that, and I was the only Asian American intern on set, so
Hmm.
I knew it was directed at me, right?
Hmm.
But it's like I feel like all AAPIs in Hollywood have stories like this, right?
Hmm.
If and when something like that happens, right? And you're talking about like dignity in this article, what what is a person supposed to do, you know, in the face of that kind of behavior?
Well, are you talking about now or back then? Because I think
I
the
guess
landscape is completely different now.
I guess now. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess now. Like, what should be protocol, really?
To basically speak up. I mean, to I mean, now it's kind of gone in the other direction. In terms of like, you know, pronouns and like I know people. A friend of mine who teaches at USC. It's become kind of a minefield now for, especially for the teachers,
Mm,
and now it's like they feel like they can't. They have to be very careful about what they say, and you have to catch up with where everybody is in terms of using the right language and
sure.
being aware of all the different oppressions and microaggressions and all of this stuff, which was
Yeah.
not part of our lexicon. I don't know, 10 years
Uh-huh.
ago. So
Uh-huh.
this is all new. So now this is kind of like the extreme backlash to your question. Like
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
nobody's putting up with anything. Everybody's
Yeah.
like, no, don't say that. You can't say whatever it is.
Right.
Now it's gone to that extreme where now people are being much more careful about what they're saying, and also the acknowledgement of people of color. Like now you're seeing people of color being hired in front and behind the camera everywhere. I've always
Mhm.
like it always struck me every time I went to an audition in any studio.
Yeah.
Like you go inside the office space, everybody was white, and I
Yeah.
don't know why. Like it always stuck out to me, but it was like the norm. So it seems like okay, everybody seems okay with this, but it always stuck out to me that every set is predominantly white, and only now is that beginning to change.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, definitely it took huge amounts of tragedy for us to start to go, okay, this is not something's.
Yeah.
We're all practicing white supremacy here. We're not calling it that. We're not doing that. But I mean, we're not acknowledging it. But that's what we're practicing. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you're like, to my question, your response is, well, I mean, now it's like there's over policing, this PC over policing of cancel culture. That is definitely, I think I find that problematic too, because, it's like that also is in a way a practice of white supremacy in a way, like you can't like, it's like point, like I don't know if they say this in Buddhism, but if you point one finger, you're gonna have three fingers pointed back at you kind of thing. It's like you can't expect a different result by doing the same thing. Whatever oppressive thing, abuse that white supremacy has done, if you try to do that back, oftentimes like lashing out, calling racism in a very aggressive or hostile way, right? That is similarly violent, even though it's standing on a righteous sort of stance. If it's enacted in a violent way that, I don't know, like destabilizes a person, then it's not effective, right?
Well, I think
So,
also these are phases we're going through culturally. Like, I
oh
don't
yeah,
think this
hmm,
is a forever thing, you
sure,
know.
yeah, yeah,
But I
that's
think
true.
it's a necessary kind of phase that we're going through.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, like an
it's
anger response is almost natural to
yeah,
some extent, right? And it's like, what
yeah.
comes after that? How do we deal with that? No, it's like, with anger, it's almost like it's this it's an eternally hungry beast. The more you feed
Hmm.
anger, there's
Hmm.
really no end to it, right?
Yeah, 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 for
Mm.
sure.
No, I guess so. Then my question is like, how do we sort of navigate that? Like, you can acknowledge your anger and your pain. You don't want to be on the too far extreme of things and, like be brutal in terms of your calling out. Like, I mean, how do we toe this fine line, like this balanced sort of
Well,
existence?
going back to my own spiritual journey,
Yeah.
um, like one of the four agreements in Don Miguel's book
Yeah.
is don't take anything personally.
Uh-huh.
Be impeccable with your word is
Mm-hmm.
another agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this idea of not taking anything personally
Mm-hmm.
is a huge agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take that agreement to heart and practice
Mm-hmm.
not taking anything personally, it's
Yeah.
hugely liberating.
Yeah.
Um, because nothing anybody does is personal unless you
Mm-hmm.
are completely absorbed and identified with your ego.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, the answer to your question or the way forward is about waking up to the who we really are, to who you
Mm-hmm.
really are, to the truth
Mm-hmm.
of the true self. And the
Yeah.
true self is like one of the things in the Toltec philosophy, Don Miguel's tradition,
Uh-huh.
is that we as a species, we're all dreaming.
Yeah.
The mind is dreaming all the
Uh-huh.
time.
Yeah.
And we collectively are dreaming the dream of the planet, the dream of the
Mm-hmm.
world. So
Mm-hmm.
we're collectively dreaming this. But part of the practice of, you could say, the Toltec warrior is like somebody who's following Buddhist teachings or even the
Mm-hmm.
teachings of Christ is about waking up to
Mm-hmm.
the divinity that exists not only within you but everywhere and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
and everybody. And
Yeah.
so if you realize that in yourself, if you see it in
Right.
yourself, then you're going to
Right.
see it everywhere. But you need to
Sure.
recognize it in yourself first. That first of all, that there is no separate self. This idea of a separate self exists only in the imagination. When you see through the separate self, the illusory egoic self,
Mm-hmm.
then you see yourself in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Then you see that the world is just an effect, and the effect of the cause of how the world is not going this way. The world is going this way. Like we are
Yeah.
constantly creating the world in our mind and living in the world that we're projecting, because
Yeah.
nothing actually has any inherent meaning. All the meaning is coming from us.
Yeah.
So I think depending on your state of consciousness, you can have a very different experience walking into two people could be walking into the same situation. One person is full of anger and delusion, and one
Yeah.
person is awake. They're going to have very
Hmm.
different experiences walking into the same situation. Somebody might deal with some racist comment or something, and that'll trigger them, and like it's almost like they were expecting it. And another
Yeah.
person is like, you know, is not seeing themselves as separate from anything,
Yeah.
and then everybody feels that on a if not a conscious, on an unconscious level, everybody feels your vibration, your lightness, your awakeness, and responds accordingly.
Yeah.
So by you being awake, you wake everybody around you. You have an awakening kind of energy, and you
Mm-hmm.
facilitate everybody's awakening in your life, in your world, if you are able to truly operate from a place of of awakeness.
Yeah. You're using the term wakefulness, and right now in this realm of policing PC culture, they're using the term woke or woke culture. And I don't think they realize how they're misapplying this concept so
Mm.
radically.
And then also that term has been kind of tarnished too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that word has been completely like
Yeah.
mangled, and now it has different meanings, and the right uses it against the left, and
Yes, yes, yes. Like in any which way, like God concept, divinity concept has been mangled for many people, right?
yeah,
Although the intention was like originally something else,
yeah,
like people were
yeah,
trying to use this God and divinity concept to free people, but it was used also to oppress a lot of countries
sure,
and create wars and cause individual spiritual abuse and whatnot, right? It goes on endlessly, but really it's like trying to, I guess I think it needs to stem from one. I mean, you were talking about like this law of attraction thing, kind of like if somebody says something racist and it triggers your anger, then it's like you were kind of expecting it, right? It's a law of attraction thing. It's like you have to be wanting peace. One must be wanting peace, and one must always be wanting healing, peace, and good things. They have to be in that state first off if they want, I don't know, joy and peace in life.
Well, I would tweak that. I wouldn't say they
Yeah,
would
yeah.
want it.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
would
yeah.
be it. They would be peace.
Ah,
There's a difference
yeah,
between wanting peace and being peace.
that's
Wanting
true.
peace is not peace.
Right.
Wanting peace, you're still in a place of grasping after something that you believe is not here.
There is some effort in
Being
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
being peace is you're being peace. And so you
Mm.
emanate peace. You
Yeah,
recognize
yeah,
peace is
yeah.
here. So
That's
it's
true.
not aspirational. It's here.
Mm. Again, it's like recognition, sort of like
Yeah,
coming
it's
to it,
always it's
centering.
always here. Everything is always here. The
Yeah,
illusion is when you're in a when your consciousness is in a perception of lack, then you feel like
yeah.
you craving.
Hmm.
Uh, but when you wake up and recognize past and future are just mental concepts, all that
Hmm.
really exists is now, and everything is always here. Everything
Yeah.
is always here. There's nowhere else it could be. It's here.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when you're awake to the truth of reality, which is everything is here, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. However you want to phrase it or look at it, then there's no more. That's when you're released from the ignorance of grasping after something that you believe is
Yeah.
not here.
Yeah. Part of the reason why I had to distance myself somewhat from academia is because of the way that we were training students. Um, like how to write a paper, for instance. We tell them you have to come up with an argument. That's the first thing we tell them. That's how you write a paper. You have to write an argument. What is your argument? The second thing is, what are your stakes? Meaning, why should anybody give a shit about your article? Create some panic, you know? What's
Mm,
the issue here? What's the bigger issue here? They'll be like, oh, feminism, racism,
mm,
indigenous people's rights, whatever.
mm,
It's like we're training students to become all worked up. They're already dealing with fear and paranoia, like how you were in college. I mean, that's the period when the most mental breakdowns happen, between age 18 and 25. That's
Mhm.
statistically true. Between age 18 and 25, you have the most mental breakdowns in America. And you send those frightened students who have no idea what they want from life, but it's like the pressure's there. You got to know what you want to be right now. And they send them to this expensive school, parents screaming at them. You better make it worthwhile. Don't waste our money. Don't waste your money. You took out $200,000 in loans. You're going to this expensive school. You better make it worthwhile. Terrified students, right? Teaching them how to make arguments, how to have stakes. And then where are they going to take all that anger? They take it to Twitter, and then they take it to professors. You misgendered me. You offended me racially. You did this, you did that, right? What we also need to realize is a lot of these professors are adjunct professors. They don't get paid jack shit. The first adjunct contract I received, it was $1,300 a month to teach a whole entire course.
Wow.
That's not a livable wage at all, right? So adjunct professors are just as terrified, living in fear and injustice and suffering as the students. That's the cycle that academia is sort of stuck in right now, this vortex. And it's like, I mean, if we try to offer them word on divinity, that's also not going to work. Why? Because in college, that's where students learn how to tear down religion, you know? So I don't know. I feel like there's really no answer to this, but the one thing that I am trying to come to is like, I don't know, like I feel like in art there is some freedom, right? Like, you chose theater, movement, physical expression, Like a lot of Asian parents think like education is the only way, like books are the only way. I'm a good example of education not having worked out at all, right? Um there's like I was watching this
Wait.
thing.
How is that? How are you an example of that?
Like I have a PhD, but I have nothing to show for it. Like I don't have a job in academia for it. Like there are
Is
no
that what was that the desired outcome is to have a job in academia? Is that why you got a
to
PhD?
to have a tenured professor job is a pretty cushy job. Like a tenured professor gets a pretty consistent salary and
Uh-huh.
it's pretty low key. Of course, you have to work a lot. You do have to teach classes. You have to read a lot. You have to present papers and whatnot. But to me, that sort of comes easily. So that would have been a nice, cushy job. Ultimately, though, like the deeper me knew that I didn't want that job. Like I was talking to somebody, they're like, if it wasn't for the salary, would you want to be teaching? I was like, hell no, absolutely not. You
Well,
know?
I mean,
Uh,
from where I'm standing, you're doing your stand up, you have this podcast, you're writing a book, you've got
yeah, yeah,
podcasts, you got all of this
yeah.
stuff going on. You're just
Hmm.
a production machine, it seems like, and it
Yeah, yeah,
seems
yeah.
all connected to this PhD. I don't know how you're perceiving it as like a waste, because I do feel like there's
Mm.
a certain kind of passion that's driving you forward,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's a little bit maybe to call it a like a waste or whatever. I don't. I'm not seeing it from where I'm standing. I don't see it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as a waste.
No, that's true. Thank you. No, that's a good reminder. It's not a waste, but it's not like typical for a PhD to be pursuing the arts. Usually they're in an academic or educational institution of some
Sure.
sort. But yeah, I mean, in arts, like I feel like we we're applying a lot of these values that we have, but in a somewhat more peaceful way. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. To the arts, yeah. I mean, the arts is. It took me a long time. I think quite a number of years to feel good about myself being an actor, because I had internalized a lot of that, attitudes about the business, and so I was kind of struggling with feelings of shame for a while,
Hmm.
um, and
For being
wasn't
an
any
actor?
particular. Yeah, like I just remember early on, like just being in the dressing room and like just feeling depressed, just because I felt like,
Really?
yeah, because I had this idea, like I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't something my parents were wanted me to
Fascinating.
be, like, so I was comparing where I was to some ideal that, the
Yeah.
whole reason I was in college, so um,
I see.
it took me a while to shift my thinking on that and recognize, um, that it's a noble profession, and that this actually has done a lot of good.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to arrive at that.
Yeah. No, I really admire what you do, and your sort of repertoire of work. I think it's really like astounding, honestly.
Thank you.
One last question, and then we can wrap up. But I recently had to deal with this not too long ago. Um, I got a voiceover audition call. Somebody found me on Instagram and asked me to do a voiceover audition, and they wanted me to do it in a quote unquote South Korean accent. And I'm sure this is something you've dealt with time and time again. How do you sort of deal with that? Because for me, there was like this internal conflict slightly. I was like,
Hmm.
do I want to do that? Like, yeah.
Well, my view is, as an actor, if it's true to the character, then like I don't have an issue with dialects if it's
Mm,
meant for the character. Like the character is
yeah.
from South Korea, it makes sense that they would have a dialect. I don't have the like. I'm not doing dialects. I don't have that feeling or idea that
Mm,
dialects somehow are. It all depends on the character. If it's meant to be funny because you speak with a dialect, then that's different. That's racist.
right.
But
Right.
if it's an authentic character who's immigrated from Korea, like yeah, that not that I want to do that. Like I've turned down these you know Korean market owner roles, like
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. Like I'm done doing that. Like I
Mhm.
don't feel like I need to do that again.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired of it,
Yeah.
like although I don't have any judgment about it in itself. For me, like I feel
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else, like so that's
Yeah.
just me. I
Uh-huh.
don't have an attitude about the role itself, but
Yeah.
like but doing immigrant dialects when it's called for.
Sure.
Um, I mean, I just did a play. Asian. It was a Chinese American playwright and
Hmm.
Asian American cast, and
Hmm.
so we're going in like we're playing different roles. So I'm playing uh, the dad who grows up in China. So I'm speaking with the Chinese dialect, and then I'm
Yeah.
in present time, and I think so it depends on what the project is, what the role is.
I see.
Um, so dialects themselves, I have no judgment about. It's neutral,
Yeah.
like you know,
Got it. So context,
yeah,
seeing the whole. Okay.
yeah,
I dig that. Actually, as soon as you mentioned Greengrocer, one other question came up to me. Is it okay if I ask?
yeah.
In Do the Right Thing, uh, when the fires are happening, and then your character has like the mop handle, and you're like, don't like, trying to protect your
Mm,
business. There's this moment when you stick your hand out,
yeah.
right? And then it just cuts to the next scene, the next
Yeah,
shot.
yeah. None of that was in the script. I came up with all of that on the spot.
That was
So
improvised.
yeah,
Okay.
or I know white. I know white. I black. You and me same. I came. That was what I came up with. So it wasn't in the script. Like
I see.
the role was a complete. The script was like a skeleton. So
Oh,
my character could have been somebody who, if I just said the lines as they were,
yeah.
I would have been somebody that was just this Korean market owner that
Yeah.
was saying, that was just trying to protect the store and saying
Right.
anything to keep them away. But
Yeah.
my interpretation of the role is like, no, no, no. Like I'm politically aware. I
Mm,
understand that we're both oppressed. You and me
mm.
are the same. Like I'm coming from that place as my role. I'm part of
Got
this
it.
community. Like I made all those decisions as an actor. That's who I was uh, in the role. So those
Yeah.
kind of things were not in the script themselves.
I love that. I love that. And that's sort of like, sort of revealing to us now, like, your decision to be an actor is like actually it's really wise, like you are politically enacting through
Mm.
your acting,
Yeah,
you know?
I've always tried to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Thanks for that anecdote. I really
Mm.
love that. I love that film, and um yeah, I think the fact that you have comedic training, like where like comedic background, love for comedy, it shows in your
Mm.
performance and all of it. because you always commit. You commit so hard. It's like you don't see anything else. You just commit to that role and that moment so intensely.
Mm.
And that's what comedians do. They're great at that. They're great
Yeah.
at committing to that moment. And
Yeah.
the humor always like comes through, you know.
Right.
Even like that dark role that you play in Fargo. It's like your character, as tragic as he is, was hilarious,
Yeah.
you know, really. So yeah, I love your work. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
talking with me today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.